if you don't get me to consider your video or your piece of content in the first 3 seconds, I will move on to the next piece of content because it's literally a rabbit hole. So whether you're doing YouTube, whether you're doing Instagram, whether you're doing TikTok, whatever platform you're using to push your story, have them hooked within the first 3 seconds.
Welcome to the Design Table podcast. I'm back with another episode with a digital marketing expert, Thirmizi Samsoodeen. So you are a creative photographer, you own your own business, you know everything about marketing. So I want to talk to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure to be here.
And tell us, how did you get started in this industry?
You know, I actually started literally from the bottom with print marketing. So my first job out of university was in print marketing, and I sort of navigated my way from print into digital startups, and then from a digital marketing agency into like bigger marketing agencies in like Toronto. And then I sort of navigated my way into like the brand marketing side. And I was working with a startup there as well, like on the brand marketing side and helping them, grow their team there. And that was before I actually started my own marketing agency.
So before we started recording, I know we were talking a little bit about how you actually started into the print side. So I know you were creating all your graphics by yourself. So how did that journey get you started into where you are today?
My first job out of university was print marketing. And this was when actually Instagram was getting its really, really big boom.
Oh, okay.
Right? And people were transitioning, focusing their attention from Facebook to Instagram, right? And I had a photography background. So I was trying to navigate how I can sort of use Instagram to my benefit and grow my own brand on Instagram while working full-time in print marketing, right? And the sidebar, I actually did not like working in print marketing.
Yeah.
Like it was a dying industry, as you know. And
Right.
so I had to do something to sort of navigate my way into the digital side of things, right? But it was great. Like it was I learned a lot from like my print marketing side. I learned a lot of skills that I actually brought on to my sort of junior role in the digital marketing agency. And it was a great stepping stone so that I get my feet wet right out of university and get like immersed into the corporate environment of things, right?
I have a similar story because I also come from a marketing background, and my very first job was at a corporation in which we did print marketing as one of like the, billboard ads and and flyers and things like that. So I totally get how it can be a tedious process, but it was great for me to understand how should you play with color and how should you position your text messaging and all that. So it's a good foundation for you to get your feet wet and then transition over into something that's a little bit more digital. And then, of course, as you mentioned, social media became such a big thing.
Yeah.
So what I want to talk about is just how your journey into entrepreneurship began, because I know in school you were doing photography and you kind of understood that this is my vibe.
Yeah.
I'm doing really well at this.
Yeah.
And then from there, you opened your own advertising/marketing agency, which you are now the owner of. So what made you go off into your own and create a brand to help other business owners?
So, as I was understanding the shift from like Facebook to Instagram back when I was working in a print marketing agency, I started, utilizing my skills as a photographer. And as you know, back then, Instagram was a very heavy it was a photo sharing app, essentially, right? Yep. And a lot of brands and businesses, or even creators back then, were building their brand through the use of their skill sets, right? With whether it's Photoshop or photography, whatever it was, they were showcasing their work, right? So I sort of like hopped on that train during that really, really important shift.
Okay.
And I sort of, like you said, use my photography background to like create beautiful images. I actually network with a lot of photographers in Toronto. And I used to like hustle, man. Like back in the day, like, my work would start at 9 a.m. I'd be shooting sunrise pics in Toronto with my photography community back at 6 a.m. and then I jetted back to Oakville for work, right?
Because you need those like twilight /
You needed the perfect time.
Right.
Yeah, like the hours, like the sun matters, the light, photography is all light, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff really, really mattered. And as I was building my brand on Instagram and I was getting followers, I started like networking with a bunch of like-minded individuals, and networking is so key, and building a community is so, so important when you're actually building your brand, that I was able to like get feedback from people and sort of get myself in the right circles and like sort of talk to people with the right mindset and sort of identified where I need to be, or where it sort of helped me map my journey into where I wanted to go.
Okay.
Right.
So you're saying networking can be a very big part of trying to establish yourself as a business owner?
Absolutely. Like, you have to always be the dumbest person in the room, right? And you have to go in there with like I want to learn more mindset. And so I was in those rooms with people that were like, had like hundreds of thousands of followers. And back then when I had like 8,000 or 9,000 followers, I'm like, dude, how did you do this? Like, how can I get there? And, you know, they would, because you're hungry and you want to learn, they sort of open doors for you and help you navigate through certain situations. So, you know, as I was building my brand on Instagram, I started getting agencies and companies, like PR agencies and companies reach out to me for social media campaigns, right? And I remember my first ever deal was with RBC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good deal to have.
It was a pretty good deal to have. Yeah, they were pushing their Visa cards, and I was one of the influencers that they were working with, right? I actually did a campaign with them, and you know, they loved it. They had me over for like their like a party they threw for a launch party for that Visa card and all that kind of stuff. So I met more people, and it was like the start of that journey, right? And then I was able to use RBC as a case study and sort of pitch myself to other companies and other agencies. And as I was getting companies reach out to me, and as my network and my following was growing, so did my brand, right? And so I had to sort of put that brand hat on and figure out, okay, how am I positioning myself on Instagram? How am I showcasing? Because it was a personal brand. It wasn't a company just yet.
Right.
I was still working full time, and I was hustling on the side with this, right? And I was attracting clients, and people were, you know, Toronto was a boom for creators, and people were really getting put on the map with sort of all these campaigns that they were working with, right? So as my brand was growing, I had to figure out, like, who am I? Like, what am I trying to push? What is my brand? How am I different from other photographers out there, right? And with that, I sort of, you know, as I was getting more clients, you know, approaching me for brand work, I was able to figure out my style of work and apply it to the campaigns that I was working with. So really help me figure out what kind of brand that or the idea of the brand that I wanted to push forward, right?
And that's a really good, important point, because you're saying that you didn't necessarily understand what your style was at the very beginning, but you kind of played around a couple of months here and there, and then you were able to identify your look. And the reason why I say that is because in interior design, a lot of designers are always struggling to find like their look. And if they don't have it at the very beginning, you know, they start to get a little bit intimidated and feel demotivated, because you're supposed to attract clients based on the look that you're providing. But you and I are here to tell our viewers that it's okay not to have a look at the very beginning, and you learn and then you adjust, you modify. And that's when you start to understand, okay, you know what, this could be my vibe, and then you go along with it.
100%. Like, I didn't have a look or a style when I started, and it was just about getting my feet wet and really just throwing myself into the deep end and figuring out as I go along, right? And honestly, the more you do, the more you're actually thrown into your work, and the more hours you put into your work, you actually realize, okay, this is my kind of style, right? And the only way you can develop that is if actually you're actively working on your brand or on your craft, right? You're putting the hours in, whether it's photography or interior design or marketing or advertising, until you develop that style. Sometimes it takes years for people to develop that kind of style, right? But it's like, even when you're talking about interior designing, how would you know, like, this is your style as an interior designer if you've only done one house? Right? Do 10, do 10, do 20. And then as you're doing it, you're outside of your comfort zone and you're getting into another comfort zone. You're leaving one comfort zone into another, and you're developing that style. And that's what I found myself doing, right? And then I was able to, once I figured out what my style was and what my kind of differentiator was from other creators, I was able to pitch companies and agencies and be like, hey, this is what I do. This is what I'm really good at. This is what I have to offer. Let's work, right?
So I want to talk about the word brand, because you and I come from marketing backgrounds. So it's second nature for us to understand what that means. But there's a lot of people who don't know what truly does that mean, because marketing can be a fluffy thing, right? For some people, of course, you and I know that it's not, because we've been doing marketing for so long. But tell us, what does brand mean to you, and how important it is for somebody who's starting their own business?
Absolutely. So a brand for me is kind of twofold, right? It's how you want to showcase yourself to your audience and how you want your audience to perceive you. Right? McDonald's as a brand is so, like, even Apple, I'll give Apple as a better example. Apple, I would say, more than they are a tech company, they're such a good marketing company, right? They don't do anything innovative with their phones anymore, right? Hundreds of thousands of people want the new iPhone when it comes out. They want the new MacBook Pro. What's different from like the last year's MacBook Pro to this year's MacBook Pro? Literally Like the smallest thing is different, and then they're going to pay thousands of dollars to get the new product, right? But how they do that is literally through the power of marketing and the brand that they showcase themselves to be, right? So even if you're just on their website, how they showcase every single product, the story it tells, right? It gets people like us really, really hooked onto the product and sort of make it like a lifestyle for us, right? Like,
Lifestyle,
you know, like I want that new product. I want that new iPhone. I want that new
the
MacBook
loyalty
Pro.
that we give
Exactly, right? So building that brand for them, it's about, okay, like we're not doing anything innovative, but every year we're going to be making money, so much money from selling our laptops. How do we showcase to people that a simple chip from like the A13 to A14, which is nothing innovative, nothing crazy, is literally the thing that they want the most, right? And it's all through marketing.
Right.
Right.
So it is important and it works.
And
right?
it is important and it works, right? Even if the product is not as great, but the marketing is so good that you have to, that you're going to be buying it, and they sell out, and you know, yeah. So for me, it's very much two-way. It's about how you as a brand portray yourself to people and your audience, and how you want them to perceive you.
Right.
Right.
So right now we're all living in a world of social media and, you know, the era of everything going digital. There's a lot of designers who, you know, when they reach out to me, they ask for advice on how they can get started on like a visual portfolio. And I know that putting yourself out there can be an intimidating process. You have to put up a website together. You might not know how to put a website together. So in that situation, I always tell them, let's use Instagram as your visual portfolio because it's a grid, right? And it's free. So for me, it's really important that the content that they put out is good, but it shouldn't be perfect, because that's the thing that a lot of people get demotivated because they see other really influential people putting out great content out there. So if somebody who's just about to start their Instagram page and they want it to look nice and presentable, what are some of the kind of things that they should keep in mind so that they are doing a good job, but not feeling overwhelmed and making it look perfect right from the beginning?
So I would say, if you're still finding out what your style is, or if you're still trying to figure out where to build your Instagram page, but where do you start? I say start with colors first.
Okay.
Right? Let's say if you're an interior designer and your colors are green and white.
Your brand colors are
green and white. The content that you're putting out on your feed should have hints of green and white, and it should all be aligned. Right? So as important as it is for people to worry about the actual post that's going out, the caption, and it all comes full circle, right? Like the posts that they put out, the captions, the hashtags that they use, all of that is important, but also take a look at it from afar. And just to your point where you're talking about the feed, how does the feed look overall?
Right.
Right? Because if someone visits your Instagram page, before they actually click into the photo, they're going to look at your feed.
Right.
Right? So is it cohesive? Is it representing your brand? Is it clean? Right? A lot of the times I say less is more when you're starting off, until you're really getting your brand full on out there. You're generating a lot of followers, a bigger community. Less is more, right? Provide the most value, but with the least amount of visuals as needed, right?
And I think the way to target that is keep your feed clean, but then be active on your stories, because I know engagement is really important. And sometimes people hear rules like you must post once every day. But in this situation, we're saying that let's keep your feed clean and minimal, but keep the engagement going through stories, put questions out there, get some engagement going and all that stuff.
I would say more so than stories is Instagram Reels right now. I would say stories is really, so stories was pushed to compete directly with Snapchat. And that was, I forgot how many years ago that they pushed stories out to compete directly with Snapchat, because Instagram found themselves losing users because they hadn't had the story feature out into users with Snapchat, because Snapchat had disappearing stories and they had not trends, but like
the
scores, like the scores when you can like snap someone, they snap you back. So Snapchat was really pushing that sort of stuff, and Instagram was like, okay, how do we keep the users that are moving over to Snapchat? They started stories, right? And people can see updates from their friends. It's an integral part of their feed now. When you open up, I find like a lot of people, how they're integrated with Instagram's different, but me personally, as soon as I turn on the app for the first time, instead of scrolling on my feed because of the Instagram algorithm, I actually, to keep up to date with my friends, I'm just looking at the stories.
The stories, right?
That's
like, a very good point.
What's so-and-so up to? This, that, and I comment on stories, like, and engage, right? But if you're building a brand and you're really trying to push content out there, right now, Instagram is really looking favorably on Instagram Reels. So much so that even when you're on your feed, You're scrolling through content and you see a reel and you click into the reel to watch it fully by the 9:16
full frame
ratio. Yeah, full frame. It takes you away from your feed and into the Instagram Reels feed.
And then you only get Reels.
You only get Reels. So that, and they have a Reel tab at the bottom, like front and center. You can't miss it. It's literally the middle. It's the middle button. So you're being pushed into the feed. Right. And brands are, brands are sort of thinking, or people that are starting brands are thinking, okay, I'm on Instagram, photos, design. How does it look? Right. That's great. But you're not going to be pushing, you're not going to be growing your brand as much because you're focusing on the photos, right? Focus on the Reels. And what's really, really important too is now that you can upload a cover photo for the reel that you put. And if the reel is part of your feed, because you have the option of choosing if the reel is part of the feed, your actual feed or just your reel feed, you can add a cover photo. So you can design a cover photo, again, make it minimal. And it asks you before you upload, here's how it looks on your feed. You can adjust it. Right. So again, stuff like that, it won't affect your feed, but you're also pushing out content from Instagram Reels. You're keeping up with the algorithm, and the algorithm is looking super favorably on that kind of content, that they'll push it out to more people. Right. And I have like use cases of clients where, the first month they're so adamant on posting photos. I'm like, listen, we can do this, no problem, but trust me, let's do Reels. Right. So if you're an interior designer starting out, what you want to do is showcase as much value as possible to build your brand. Like
behind the scenes of you, even doing a small project, just put capture that content and put it up there, and then edit the cover photo based on what is according to your aesthetic.
Right. And it's not even sure, the behind the scenes and you working, but also provide value to your audience, right? Like a lot of the people think that they can design at home, right? For people that have houses and stuff, which is fine. But, you might have a follower that says, hey, I'm doing this to my kitchen, like I'm stuck. What can I do? Make a series about that. Right. Like make a series about, interior designing for your bedroom, interior designing for your kitchen.
Tips and
tricks and stuff that helps you establish yourself as like the leader, the authority in that space.
Right.
You're just providing so much value that when they're ready to actually push the button and actually hire an interior designer, you're the one that's giving them so many tips and so many hints and so much value to them that you're the first person that they think of when they're ready to pull the trigger.
Right. And that's a really good point, because I get questions asked saying, oh, I don't have enough projects, so what am I going to put on my visual portfolio? But then you brought up an amazing point where it's like, you don't always necessarily need to be working on a specific project. You can just sit in a space, put your camera, iPhone up and talk about your expertise on a specific space, whether it's renovation, decorating, and that itself can be the best thing that you can do for your page.
Yeah, literally, you're providing value, and in between projects, if there's always slow, and people have slow days
slow
as well.
times for sure. Yeah.
Create a series, add so much value, and then when you have projects, you're always working, and it's just ways that you can work on your brand, right?
So I have a controversial question for you.
Okay.
There's a lot of people that, especially in the creative industry, that like to post inspirational pictures on their feed, which is not necessarily their work. So as a photographer, I know you do a lot of shoots of different brands. You also have your marketing company, but on your photography page, 100% of the content that you post is yours. But there's a lot of people who post other people's content as inspiration. So do you think that that is okay to do or not? Or what's your view on that? Because same thing goes with interior design. I see a lot of people that are designers, but they post content of other designers as inspiration, but it gets blurred in the feed because you're not really recognizing if that is your work or if it's not. So what do you think about that?
It's like, I'm sure you know Ferris Raffaelli. He's a crazy designer. I think he's in Drake's house. I actually follow him because I think his work is amazing.
He has a studio in Oakville.
There you go, right? It's just super tasteful work. But I can't tell you how many people I know, interior designers or not, just share his work on his feed for inspiration. Right? I think for me, it's not a problem. I think it's mostly, as long as you're tagging the accredited account and you're saying, you're making sure that people know that it is his work that you're showcasing. But also, I think it would be really, really cool that if you're showcasing someone else's work, speak to why you're showcasing that work.
Right.
What's beautiful about that? That helps your brand, right?
That's a really good point.
Hey, if you're posting this amazing marble or this kitchen that he's done, right? And you've seen the work that he's done. The fixtures to the countertops, to every detail that he has. Speak to it. Be the leader in your field. Speak to why you're posting this image. shout him out and be like, I love the work that he's done. Look at the marble, look at the color combination, look at the fixture that he's matched with the stuff that he's like, I'm not an interior designer, so I'm just, but you know what I mean? So speak to that and speak to why you love it. So that when so that it's not lost in the feed, right? Or even if you're making an Instagram Reels or series or TikTok series about showcasing other designers, and this could be a really great idea for you too, showcasing other designers why you like their work. People would love that content. Like they know he's a famous designer, they know he's worked on Drake stuff, but why do you like that work? Like your style, right? Like I would, and then you can even give recommendations based off my style. I would actually have this fitting here and this there, but you know, who am I to talk about Ferris's work, right? Like, so have fun with it too, right? So for me, it's not really controversial. It's like, yeah, if you're showcasing the work, do that. Make sure you're crediting him at the minimum. And
then talk why you are using it.
Speak to why you're using it, why you want your viewers to look at the post that you've posted about Ferris's work, right?
And I think that also leads you to collaborate with other designers. So they don't necessarily have to be such huge, high-attaining designers, but maybe somebody in your community that you've been following for a while and you really like their style. If you speak to their words, you might have the gateway open to network and collaborate with them and then say, hey, I'm really inspired by your work. I talk about it a lot. Do you want to get together and do something or whatever? So
I actually have a funny story. So when I was growing my Instagram, it's not so much funny as like sort of to the topic that you're talking about. I was like maybe 10K followers, like 15, I don't even remember. And there was this other photographer who had like close to 100K. And I really wanted to collaborate with him. Like I wanted to go to the spots that he was going to in Toronto. And he really had a really cool view in Toronto. And I wanted to showcase that to my followers, my audience, right? Oh, I actually DM'd him and I said, dude, your work's incredible. Do you want to do a collaboration? And he was like, man, I'm super busy. I'm like not even in the country, but I would love to collab, right? So I said, okay, do this. Send me the raw photos of your stuff and I'll throw my edit on them. So I took a photo. So he sent me like a bunch of photos that were like from Toronto, and it's stuff that it was drone shots. It was shots from rooftops, places that I haven't been yet. And I was like, okay, so this would be awesome on my feed, number one. Let me throw my style on it and let me showcase the collaboration on my feed and showcase him as an artist on my feed as well. And he's like, dude, this is incredible. Like after I finished the edit, I sent it to him and he actually posted it on his feed as well. To like, for a guy that had like 10 to 15K followers to a guy that has almost 100K, I'm like, yo, this is so sick.
That's a really smart thing to do.
And we shared that community, and people from his page were coming onto my page and sending me likes and followers and engaging with my content. And my followers did the same, but I'm sure like my followers already followed him because he was like a bigger dude in the community. But for me, it was just like, how can I showcase another artist or collaborate with another artist, even though I can't really, like, I'm not with him or working with him.
No, that's good. And that's the power of virtual collaborations too, where you don't like this person wasn't even in the country and you're like, no problem, we can still find a way. So I think when it comes to collaborations, it doesn't always have to be in person and physically present. There's so many opportunities. And I think that's what the pandemic has allowed us to do is be creative with our approach and how we do things. It doesn't always have to be in a meeting room, in a confined space. It could be in virtual on different time zones and you can still make it work.
Different countries, it doesn't matter, right?
Yes, so I love that story. So I want to talk about how somebody can create a storytelling for their company to target their desired clientele, because you want to make sure that whatever content you put out there, it's specific to the right audience that you want to work with or work for. Because, you know, sometimes it gets a little bit too challenging when you have inquiries and leads coming from everywhere, and then for you to, you know, source through which one is right for me. So how can somebody better create their storytelling so that they are especially targeting or speaking to the right audience?
You know, I would say at any stage of the journey that you're on, when you're working on your brand or your business, you need to have your ICP like nailed down. So
what is that? What's
ideal customer profile nailed down, nailed down pat, right? So create an actual profile, name that person, talk about where they're, how much income they're making, if they have kids, if they don't, where they're living, like really, really narrow down that person of who that ideal customer is. Right? So if you're only working on like luxury homes or people with a certain type of minimum budget or whoever it is, literally just nail that person down. And then the next step is, once you nail them down, figure out where that persona of people have their attention. Like, where's that attention? Like, if you're targeting someone who's 45 years old, who lives in Oakville, who has 3 kids, who's dual income or household income is about 250 grand plus. Like, where is that person? Where are they spending their time? Where is their attention? And if that's who you're targeting, you've got to be on those platforms, right?
Okay.
Like, if that's someone who's on Instagram mostly, or if she's in the spin classes, if she's in the Good Life or, Lifetime, or if she's in a country club on weekends, like wherever she is and wherever her attention is for most of the time, that's where you need to be telling your story. Okay. So that's number one, nailing your ICP down and figuring out where their attention is, and then storytelling to that person. Now, when you're storytelling to that person, because you have your ICP down pat, you have to figure out what would make that person engage with your content, right? So again, you have a brand, you're building a brand, and you know what your services you provide, you know what story you're telling, but how do you want that person to perceive that story, where their attention is right now? So I'll use an example of, let's say your target or your ICP person is on Instagram, or she's on TikTok most of the time, right? How can you get her attention on TikTok? You already know her interests, you already know where she lives, you already know everything about her.
Right.
So if you're providing a service to her or you're telling your story, what can you do to actually perk her ears up? What can you do to have your content thumb stopping for her? And I use the term thumb stopping. It's like when you're scrolling, your thumb stops on this piece of content. What can you do to provide that thumb stopping content so that she listens, right? And the main thing is to hook them within the first 3 seconds of your content. So it's much easier to do on video versus on Instagram on the photo or design content.
Okay.
Because you're able to tell your story a lot more through video than you are through photos, right? So either way, whatever you're doing, hook them on in the first 3 seconds. So a perfect example would be are you working in a kitchen at home? Here's 3 things you need to do right now.
Right.
The first 3 seconds, someone who's working on their kitchen at home, or their bedroom, or they're doing interior designing at home, you already hooked them on, because here's the 3 things that you need to do right now, and then you provide that value.
Right.
Because people say, oh, we don't have a lot of, our attention spans are diminishing, because of all social media, we're switching platforms, we can't focus on one thing at once, we have no attention span. But we do have an attention span, because we're binging Netflix shows, we're binging YouTube videos, we're on TikTok for hours, or Instagram reels on hours at a time. We don't have an attention span, we have a consideration span.
Okay.
If you don't get me to consider your video or your piece of content in the first 3 seconds, I will move on to the next piece of content, because it's literally a rabbit hole. So whether you're doing YouTube, whether you're doing Instagram, whether you're doing TikTok, whatever platform you're using to push your story, have them hooked within the first 3 seconds.
Okay.
Right? And once you do that, you can literally push any type of information or value that you want to that person.
And you can also get their loyalty by them subscribing, following, because they've already, this person is actually really great at giving me advice. So.
Absolutely. And obviously give them good value, right? You don't want to give them the most basic, right? Here's 3 things you need to do. Get a house.
Or paint the walls.
Paint the walls. Like, you want to give actual good value that people can trust, right?
Yeah.
So, but once you have them hooked, that first 3 seconds, the rest is up to you. You can navigate that conversation however way you want. You can provide whatever value you want. They're hooked. They're listening to you. Right?
So let's talk about TikTok, because I know you're a big advocate about that platform, and it's something that you like pushing to your audience and your clients as well. So tell us, what are the trends that we as entrepreneurs need to be looking out for? And what are some of the things that we really need to have on our radar so that we are providing success to our business and the revenue that we're generating?
Right. So the reason I'm a big advocate on TikTok is because I haven't seen this shift between social platforms and the attention of social platforms since I was first starting Instagram. So when people were shifting from Facebook to Instagram, and how brands were adjusting from being on Facebook, like creating a Facebook page, to managing an Instagram page, since TikTok has actually boomed, right? So I have a lot of brands, a lot of businesses coming to me and asking me, what is my TikTok strategy? Video content right now is the most powerful form of content.
Okay.
Right? You can as a brand, you can tell your story so much better through video, and you can push it through different channels that promote video. TikTok is primarily that right now. The shift I'm seeing from brands shifting from Instagram to TikTok, all of the stuff that you're seeing on Instagram that are getting hundreds of thousands of views, or millions of views, millions of engagement, has already been on TikTok for 2-3 months.
Right.
So the stuff that you're sharing to your friends on DMs, that, hey, check out this reel, check out that reel, it's already gone viral on TikTok.
Right. Yeah.
Already 2-3 months ago.
And I heard that there's a benefit of TikTok where you can actually sell your merchandise through some sort of like companies are actually making money by selling their merchandise and their products on TikTok that they weren't able to do through any other platform?
For ads, I'm not quite sure. So I know TikTok ads, so Facebook and Instagram ads, and especially shopping ads on Instagram and Facebook, it's still a lot more powerful than TikTok because of the targeting and the data attribution that Facebook has, right? Like Facebook has tons of data on your scrolling habits, the content that you've viewed, that you've liked, that you've watched over 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. So they know exactly what interests you have. So if you're a brand and you're creating ads to target someone, Facebook and Instagram would be the way to go because they have years and years of data on you. TikTok doesn't have that.
Right. It's a newer platform too.
It's a newer platform. But what TikTok has that's so strong is their organic reach. So you can go viral in literally like your first video or your second video can literally go viral if you wanted to. Right. So that's the power of TikTok, and that's why there's so much value with video. And brands, I know clients that own restaurants that have never seen the type of traffic in store that they have because one of their videos went viral. Right. Like one of our clients did like 12 plus million views on one video. The owner was like, "Hey, I want to promote this dish. People mispronounce this dish." Right. So we made a fun video for that, and it literally went viral. Right. And then people were commenting like, "Oh, that's me," or like, "Hey, at Amanda, this is you." Whenever you go into this restaurant, right? And people love that type of content, and they know it's from this restaurant. So then people are coming in. People are coming from around the world. "Hey, are you in Australia? Are you?" "No, we're in Canada. We're only one restaurant. We're a mom and pop shop in Canada."
So it's identifying that personal connection of this is what the people are actually saying and doing, and like just using that as your content. So you're not even really trying to research your content. You have it in front of you. It's just a matter of packaging it together and putting it on TikTok so that it goes viral.
And the main thing is really, again, understanding your audience and then having, like, TikTok is a very fun app. A lot of brands and businesses don't understand that. They like, oh, because they're so used to coming from Instagram where everything needs to be prim, proper, my feed needs to look good, right? And then you go onto TikTok and it's just a mess of like people having fun on their skits and this and that. But you forget people love that kind of stuff. Like be that brand that provides value but also has fun with that stuff, right? And be that brand on TikTok and also do the same on Instagram. But whatever you do, make sure you're staying true to your brand values, how you want people to perceive you as a brand. Right. So it's so powerful. It's really powerful. And it's great for organic reach.
So what advice, now that we've talked about a bunch of things and how amazing marketing can be and how much of a work it can be, what kind of words of advice can you give to somebody who's starting out their business and don't really have an idea of how to get started into marketing themselves? What would you say to them?
Well, I would say utilize your social channels because they're free. And they're so powerful if done correctly, right? So don't post for the sake of posting. Make sure there's a strategy behind your posts, right? Make sure there's call to actions behind your posts. Make sure the content that you're putting out adds value. If you're not adding value, then why are people staying to engage with your brand, right? And also figure out why you're not, like what makes you different from other your competitors in your space, right? Even if you're starting a brand, you know, you may get discouraged because your competitors have so much more money than you, have so much more marketing budget or advertising budget. But you can make one video that provides so much value that can go viral on TikTok that can actually put you on par with your competitors. Just like that, right? So the main thing is using your social channels and again, figuring out where the attention is, right? So the main thing is where your attention is. So that's why I'm going back to your ICP, your customer profile. Like if your customer profile is not on TikTok, then don't be there. Then don't be there. Right. But if they're on Instagram Reels, push Instagram Reels heavy. But because you're making Reels, you can put those Reels on TikTok. And you're utilizing that TikTok. And then because we're in this shift, so maybe your ICP is not on TikTok, but they're on Instagram Reels. But because we're like marketing and technology is always moving, it's moving so fast, right? Like the trends that are here now were not the trends that were here last year, right? So your ICP will not be on TikTok now. But because you've been posting for like 20 months on TikTok and they know TikTok is actually the app that they need to be on, and now they're actually consuming content on TikTok, they find your page from the Reels and now they're on TikTok and now they're already a follower on your TikTok because they follow your brand. They love the value that you give, the services you provide, everything about you, right?
We've talked about a lot of things and I can't wait for our viewers and our listeners to go back and start putting these into action.
Cool.
If people wanted to learn more about you and what you do and how to contact you, where can they find you?
On my website, studiodistorted.com, or my Instagram, distorted.lens. But yeah, you can shoot me an email and I'd be happy to, chat with you.
And you're fairly active on Instagram. So if people wanted to connect with you, they can just
send me a DM. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being here.
No
It's been
problem.
awesome. And we're going to keep in touch with what you're up to.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thank you.